Hey, hello, friends. It is Tammy from Cheers to Creativity, and I'm here on the Essential Stencil page on this Thursday evening to share some stencil projects with you. So when you pop on, please say hello. Let us know you're here. You need to be commenting because that's how I drop things. That's how you get to be entered into the drawing tonight for 3 gift cards that Essential Stencil will choose at the end of this live for $20 gift cards. So I'm going to just pop on to Essential Stencil super quick. I'm going to try to watch a little bit for our comments, but I always go back afterwards. It's kind of like a tradition. I go back and I clean my stencils, clean my brushes, and then I get to answer any questions. I would love for you to sprinkle this around, and we would love for you to follow us over on Cheers to Creativity. So let's get started. I don't know if you could see the description of this, but did you know that there is a flower of the year? There is, and the 2024 flower of the year is the peony. And we are very fortunate that we have these beautiful spring peonies from Essential Stencils done as rub-ons that we can use to add to some projects for 2024. And then a lot of people have their word of the year. I have one, and I'm not going to use it, but I'm going to tell you that my word of the year is refinement, and it's kind of a synonym of grace. So we're going to use the word grace, but first I need to add just a little bit of color. This is just a scrap 1x2, nothing fancy, something that was hanging around the garage, and I'm not going to do a really fancy finish on it either. I know I'm going to be using these peonies, so let's look at those just real quick like. And I can decide, are they going to look best on a white background? They look pretty good on white. Would they be okay on a stained background? I'm trying to see if I have something stained or something dark. It might be a little more challenging on something dark. So I think we're going to go something light. And I'm just going to use a really easy technique to just get a little color down. Hello. I see Joyce Ann and Alicia and oh my goodness, Dorothy's on. So this again, just a piece of 2x4, not 2x4. And I'm just going to grab a plate, I think. Yes, I didn't grab plates. Had a little call before this and went a little longer than I thought it was going to. So I'm just going to give this a quick coat of a very pale color. This is just kind of a real neutral color. It's called warm beige. And it's also a color that I can see in some of those transfers, and things are falling all around me. And I could do this with just some thin down paint. I'm just going to grab a wipe. Okay, so this is nothing too fancy. Let's bring you down here a little bit. So I'm just picking it up with the wipe, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of color. Okay, so I can let this dry so we can get to it. Boy, there's been lots of weather, hasn't there? I mean, we were lucky. I thought we were lucky. We ended up not having Ryan's program on Tuesday because it really looked iffy, and we got by with very little, which is nice. But then my husband came down earlier today when I was working in the studio and said, "Did you know we're supposed to get 8 to 10 inches of snow tomorrow?" I did not. So far, we haven't canceled Ryan's program, but I would not be surprised. Okay. So what I like about this technique, one, it's best to put gloves on. I did, but I can still see the grain of the wood through there, which is, I think, is kind of fun to be able to see that. I'm just going to go around on this side too. And then I'm going to have to let that dry for just a second. And I'm thinking I might do the same word, but different stencils. Let me just get this on here. So let's try one a little darker. So I'm just going to, that's just that light warm beige color. I'm going to set that aside just so it can dry. And I have a second one here. And I think I'm going to do something a little darker, maybe a little richer. And I thought maybe, let me see if I have a metallic paint nearby. This is a metallic berry, and I've not done this technique with the wipe with a metallic. Hello, Mitzi. Hello, Sandra. It's so good to see you. We're about to get more snow tonight, blizzard conditions tomorrow. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope not. You know, we have made it through, I can say this for us, we've made it through this far into the winter without having much snow to contend with, so I cannot complain. What paints do I use? I use Decor. So the first one I used was just their Americana, which is their regular acrylic paint. You can pick them up at Hobby Lobby, at Michael's, and you can order directly from decor.com. And the one I just squirted out that I'm going to use is also Decor, but it's a metallic paint. And I said I've not done this before, but I think it'll work because I just want a little bit of color smeared into this. And it's got a little bit of a shimmer to it. So I think that'll be pretty, especially if I use the word grace. So let me get this on here. When you are stenciling with metallics, which we're actually going to be doing later, they are a little thinner than regular acrylic paint. So you want to really make sure you're offloading. Make sure you're commenting and letting us know what you're up to. What have you been stenciling this week? Or have you been playing with transfers? I did a couple projects myself with the transfers earlier today. One, did a cute little bucket back there. Just love those. And some of them are sold out, but they'll be back. They'll be back. Not exactly sure when, but they will be back. Just grabbing a little more of this paint so I can do the ends of just the ends of this piece of wood. There, just a little bit. There you go. And we might want to find a little cleaner spot to hang on to. And I'm just going to catch the ends here. This is not super finished, so it's a little rough on the edges, but that's okay. Hello, hello. When you are ordering, we would love for you to use our code, which is CHEERS, just kind of like part of our business name, Cheers to Creativity. And that'll save you 10%. And you can do that on any of your orders. I did list all the stencils I'm going to be using, so you can go back and check the description for those. And Essential Stencil usually drops them on in here and there too. So there we go. Got that end. Just a little more. The ends like to really suck up the paint. Okay. So this is kind of what I've got. Just kind of this shimmery background. I'm going to get rid of this. I think we'll take 1 second and maybe get rid of some of the extra stuff on my hands as well. I can get one out here. Oh my goodness. Just don't want it all over. So I said the word I used is actually a synonym for grace. And so I'm going to use the word grace, but we're going to use it out of a couple different stencil packs. Okay, I think most of that gets to stay on. The first one I'm going to do, I'm going to pull back the one we just did. When you touch your wood, if it feels really cool and cold, it means it's not quite dry yet. And with that being said, I think I'll grab the blow dryer and just do this really quick. Both of them really quick. Hello, Janice. I'm going faster. All right. Just wanted to make sure those were dry. So I'm going to put you down so you can see a little better. Okay. I'm going to work with this one first. Like I said, I will try to watch for your comments. And I'm going to use this stencil pack, which is actually kind of a 4th of July one. It's called America 6-Pack. And I'm going to use God shed his grace on thee. But I'm just going to use the word grace. So I am going to take some tape and I'm going to tape off where I would have a chance of getting it in somewhere else. So I can tape off here. I'm going to tape off the bottom too. Okay. Then I'm going to, before I do the stenciling, I'm going to decide which peony I want on this one. And I think I might have to take them out to make that decision. I could do some around here and lay it down. I can stencil on top. I could put the transfer on top too, but I want my transfer to be down first. Let me see what other option I have. This one might be a little smaller. It is a little smaller. Okay, so I'm going to grab a scissors. I'm going to use this one, I think. So I'm just going to cut out what I want to use for my project. Now our transfers have 3 parts to them. There's this top part, there's a backing, and then there's the actual transfer in between there. Okay, before I lay this down, I'm just going to get myself an idea. It's fine if it wraps around. How much of that would show there? Or do I want to go more up this way? Not certain. Now I'm wondering if maybe I want to do this in this block instead, because it's got this beautiful, isn't that a pretty peony color? And it looks really nice next to that one. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to lay that down there, and then I can use the word grace, and we can use a lighter shade on the word itself. Hey, hubby just popped on. So I'm going to carefully peel these pieces apart. Okay. Once you peel them apart, you need to pretty much have an idea where they're going to go, because you really can't set them down anywhere because this is pretty exposed. So I'm just going to lay this where I want this to be. And this, it's fine if it wraps around. I think that'll be good. I'm just going to lay it down, rubbing it on first. You know, I had a whole bunch of the tools earlier, and I probably didn't put them away. But here's one. Here's one of the tools that you can get from Essential Stencil, or you can use a popsicle stick, or even, let's see, here's just a regular little popsicle stick. You just want to really make sure you're adhering them down. And like over here, I want to make sure I catch the edge. Go use the tool. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate when you spend part of your Thursday evening with me, which is right now like weekend eve. So I'm just turning this up on its side so I can get the edges. Now I know this end cut is pretty rough, so I'm not sure how well that's going to adhere, but it should do pretty well. Let's get this on here. Oh, see, it did just fine. So I'm going to start peeling it back, and you just peel it slowly. And if you find a spot, you see, I don't know if you can tell, but right there I've got a little tiny spot that isn't quite adhered. So you just lay that paper back down, that protective sheet back down, and you just rub it a little more. You've not used any of the rub-ons? Oh, honey, honey, honey. They are so fun. Whether they're these, which are the Peonies that we're using right now, or some of the new ones that are just came out, the vintage ones. And I know some of them are out of stock, but be patient, be patient. Okay, so I think I've got all this on here. How pretty that is, just like that. And I like that I used that darker color on this one, because we've got that really, really pretty peony. So I said I wanted to use Grace. So I'm going to lay Grace down. I can do it this way so you can see it a little better. And I can go right over this. It fits on there pretty well. I think I'm going to grab a couple pieces of tape just so I'm hanging on to it. So got it where I want it. I'm just going to pull the tape down on this side, and I can just use that one. There we go. And because it's on a darker surface, I think I'm going to go with a lighter color. I think we'll go with light, maybe we'll go with like a light buttermilk color. So light buttermilk isn't quite white, but it isn't quite ivory either. So we're going to put a little bit of that out. Let's move it aside. And then I'm going to grab one of our stencil brushes. Guys, if you don't use our stencil brushes, you need to give them a try. They really are awesome. You get 4 of them in a set. You get a 1/2 inch. You get a 5/8. And my big brushes are over here. You get this is a 3/4. So you have 5/8, 1/2, 3/4, and the big one is a 7/8. Now this one has the pink handle. That was from our brushes that were for breast cancer awareness, and those are still available on our site. So 4 of them, great brushes, hold the paint super well. And I'm going to always make sure I have something I can offload with, so I will load my brush. Swirl, swirl. We have 290 watching, my husband said. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That's awesome. You guys are all telling your friends, right? So that's why we ask you to do this, to sprinkle it around and get more people to see what we're doing, okay? So I've laid down Grace. I think I want to scooch Grace just a tiny bit. I decided to move it just a little bit this way. It's good. And I think I taped over part of the G. Let's not do that. There we go. There we go. Okay. And I've offloaded it because offloading is your biggest key to successful stenciling. You'd much rather give it 2 coats than to have bleed through. So I'm going to give it this quick coat. And because I have very little paint on my brush, it dries super quick. The brushes are absolutely the best. So I'm going to pick up a little more. I'm offloading on my paper towel over here. So if I pick it up, I can see it looks pretty good. But over where I did it on these dark flowers, I think it needs just to be a little darker. So we're just going to give it another quick little swirl. Okay. And there we have Grace. Isn't that pretty? Now, I like the word very much, and I did do one other block. And I think we'll do this one. We'll put the word down first, and then we'll add our transfer around it. I do a lot of the blocks like this that say Grace, and I just put a vintage key across them too. Those are very popular. I had another set I wanted to show you. So that was out of the America 6-pack. So we should be finished with that. And I can put my stencil aside so it can get washed. And this is another one that has the word Grace in it. And it is the Grit, Gratitude, no. Try that again. Grace, Gratitude, and Grit set. And we have it in a couple different ways. We have this one that says Grace, Grit, Grace, Gratitude, and Grit. Oh my goodness. Which would certainly fit on there nicely. And then we have Say Grace. And I'm going to use that Say Grace, I believe. And we're going to lay it down. I think I'll pull it down so I have a little bit of space to add a little more flower. Got to figure out which one I'm going to use. I think I wanted to do one that just came up off the top. I did. Let's do one of these. Okay, so I'm going to do the word first. I'm going to make sure I've got the whole word on there, but I'm not going to do any of that vine, so I can just tape off the vine. I think the other piece of tape I had was over here. Oh, thanks for the hearts, guys. You guys are so sweet. I appreciate it. You like the font? I like all the different fonts that Essential Stencil uses, and in this case, I'm using the same word, but we're going to do it a little differently. So I'm actually going to pick up a darker, I think I'm going to pick up, this is called Heritage Brick. So it's kind of might be too orangey though. I may have to change my mind. Hang on. I'm looking at the colors in my flower that I want to use, and I kind of want it to coordinate, and I think that would be pretty good. That's one of the ways I often will find the colors to match my transfers, is I'll just open up the paints and just see if they are pretty darn close. Someone said they got their transfers today. I know that made them happy. Okay, so I've got Grace down here. And I set the paint somewhere. Oh, it's Joyful. That's the color that I'm using. It's called Joyful. And I'm going to just grab a different brush because that other one was pretty light. So I'll pick my paint up. So I've got that paint on there, but I don't ever want to go directly from this down to my project. I always want to be offloading. Look, there I have another chance just to double check that those colors are pretty darn correct. Okay, so we're going to do Grace here. Swirl, swirl, swirl. Some people prefer to pounce. I'm pretty much mostly a swirler. Every once in a while, if I've got something that's really detailed, or I'm in a really tight spot, I will sometimes do the pouncing method as well. But this Grace is pretty wide open. I think we're pretty good. And catch that. So there I have Grace. I am going to just take a moment. I'm going to grab one of our detail brushes, and I'm just going to, just where I've got these little bridges, I'm just going to fill those in. You don't have to fill in your bridges, but sometimes I just think it makes them look a little more completed. Probably should be paying attention that I'm doing this upside down, but there aren't that many. There's just this little one over here. And a little bit over here. So we've got Grace all filled in. I'm going to rinse that brush out. If you do have our detail brushes, when you're using paint, make sure you're not getting it down into this metal part, because it's really, really difficult to get paint out of your bristles if you get it down into that metal part, which is called your ferrule. So just keep it about halfway. All right, so I'm going to put this over here so I know where that's going to be cleaned out. And let us see. I think it was over here I had one. I think I want to just grab this one right here. Let's cut it off and see what we have. Okay, so I've got that leaf, which I might need to just, I might move that leaf off for right now. I can always reapply it, but I'm just going to cut it off for right now. I'm going to come in here because that way I won't go completely over my words. So I'm removing that leaf. That's the other thing that's kind of fun about our stencils. Like I used one of the eggs today, but I used it just for the flowers, not for the eggs. Okay, so now I've got this guy. Come right here. And if we can pull it around a little bit as well. So let's take this off. Oh, I love to share what I can. There's always more than one way to do something. But I'll try to tell you what's worked and what hasn't worked for me. So let's go about, how's that look? Pretty good? I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to set that down. And again, I'm going to have a little bit that's going to go over my edges, but I'm okay with that. So first I'm just going to apply some pressure here where the main part of the rub-on is. And then I'm going to take my time. I'm going to turn it up on end. And we'll just pull this. I could just cut it off too, but it's here. Let's just go ahead and use it. We'll just wrap it around. So I wrapped it around there. See how cool that is? And same over here. I've got just a little bit of these leaves that are going to wrap around my edge. Just so barely. I mean, just so very barely. But they did. They did it quite well. And I've got a little bit up on the top. Just a couple of those petals are going to wrap around too. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to remove this. Oh, thank you. I love color. I love flowers. I love color. I love to mess with color and flowers. It's got this little petal up here that just didn't want to quite come off. And here's this little leaf, and I can put it right on top of my stencil. It's fine. And this one, rub these on really good. And I've got one little part of this leaf that wants to come off. Isn't that pretty? And then we had that little bit of the leaf that didn't quite work where it was at. So I could add it. I really don't feel like I need it though. I think it looks fine just like that. Isn't that pretty? Grace. Now I most likely I'm going to take a little sandpaper and just rough that up a little bit just so the Grace is a little more roughed up. But we have Grace done this way and Grace done that way. So two different ways to use the Peonies and two different Grace words. So I put those on the rolling rack when I can't find them. So I want to do a different one. These are little shadow boxes, I guess. And I picked these up at Michael's. I'll go ahead and post the UPC for it afterwards. I'll put it in the comments. But I wanted to do a little different one. I'm going to hang on to that little leaf, though, because you just never know when you're going to need a little leaf. You just never know. Get rid of the other parts. Hang on to my peonies over here. I'm using one of the Faith mini tags, and it's not going to completely fit in here, but it will mostly fit in here. And I can get it in here enough so I can get the word faith in here, okay? Because I don't really need the cross, and if I want to be really careful about that, I can, my puppies are barking, sorry about that. I can just mark off where I want to start the faith so I don't do the cross. And I'm just going to have to hold it down a little bit, but I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight up there. So on this one, I decided I was going to go ahead and add one of the little butterflies. Now, they were still in stock before I went live, so hopefully they still are. And I believe this is the one I'm going to use. Yep, that's the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to do the word first. Tuck it up nice and tight. And those butterflies are more in the orange tones, or the one I'm going to use is going to be more in that orange tone, or that. And we've decided that those ends are really good with a color called Payne's Gray, which is, Payne's Gray is not really gray, it's really more of a blue. And if I have it, I'm going to use it. If not, we're going to go with a green. Hang on. I didn't put my paints away, so maybe that was a good thing. Ah, voila, Payne's Gray. So I could easily get a little brush in here and swirl around. I could also use a makeup sponge. And some people love makeup sponges and some people don't like them at all. But whether I'm using a makeup sponge or a brush, I'm always going to offload it. The little wood block is really small. I'll measure it in just 1 second. And this was actually, I found this as, you know how you check out at places like Michael's and they have those little things there to kind of tempt you to buy as you're walking out? That's where I found these. And they were very inexpensive. They were right under $1, like literally right under $1, like the amount 1 cent under $1. And I will measure it to you. And I'm using this just raw. I didn't paint it first or anything like that. I just kind of liked the idea of it being rather simple. Like this, got my faith on here. Okay. Faith is could be another really good word to focus on. And you asked me how big they are. Look at me, I've got a ruler. So if I measure the back of them, they are they are about 5 inches square. So of course that inside is going to be a little smaller because you've got the shadow box part. Okay, now let me grab a butterfly transfer. I'm going to cut this one out. Okay, I'm going to want this down in the corner. The other thing I could do is I could actually remove the butterfly from the flowers, but I don't think I want to do that. I think that'd be good. If not, they might have to go up on the side a little bit. I'm just going to position thing just like that. Push it down. And it's going to get up on my sides just a tiny bit. I'm just trying to show you real quick like. So I did pull it up a little bit, but we'll get that all on there. Do you think Dollar Tree has these too? They very well could. This happened to be a rare trip to Michael's for me. I buy some things from Michael's, but most of the stuff I buy from Michael's, I order and then either hubby picks up or I have delivered. I am not a good shopper. I am not. So I'm just pulling this up to here too, so it kind of came up on the side. I'm fine with that. I'm gonna catch this little piece that came over here. Really catch those edges. Now let's see how we did. other than dropping things on the floor. Okay. Oops. Pulling up a little bit, so I'm going to have to catch this edge a little more. I think we're good. We good? Are we good? Just take your time with the transfers. They really are very easy to use. But I just had that come up on an angle, so that was a little more of a challenge. And then just peel it off slowly. And if you have something that doesn't rub off, you just lay that protective paper back down and rub back on it. And voila, there it is. So get a little bit of that edge. You can actually see them turn a little bit of a different color too as you get it adhered well. Don't want to lose my antennae. Yep, you know what? Patience is, as I said, a virtue. One that I don't always have a lot of, but taking your time can save you a lot of heartache or headache. There you go. I knew that was already here. I just wanted to make sure this is. And it is. Isn't that pretty? And I like to just cut the edge a little bit. So just a really simple way to embellish a very simple box. I could easily come back with the detail brush again. I think I will. And just fill in those little bridges. Did not much, just a little bit here. A little bit here. Connect my letters. My puppies are being pests upstairs, I can tell. And I lost a little bit of the bottom of this F, so I'm just going to add it back in. And maybe connect here. Faith. Very simple. Okay. I'm going to set that right with the grace things we did. And I'm going to make a little bit of room because, ouch, the next piece I have is a little larger. And we'll just give ourselves some clean play. Thank you for the hearts. Again, putting the stencil over there so I can make sure I use it. I can put the stencils I've already used up there. And we've already used our butterfly transfers. They can go up there too. What I have is a tray. And I went ahead and I painted it brown because there's nothing really exciting about me painting something brown. I didn't do anything else to it. So I just wanted to show you that first. And then I need to mark the center of this. So, of course, it's bigger than 12 inches and it's smaller than 18 inches, which is the size of these that I have. So what I did was I cut a piece of paper that is exactly that size. We're going to fold it in half. And that will mark my halfway mark. Now I need to have a couple little marks on here. So you could use pencil. That would be one thing you could use. The other thing I sometimes like to use is I will grab watercolor pencils because they will disappear with water. So I'm just going to grab a little white one for now. Oops, I laid this on top of my iPad. So I'm just going to lay this a couple places. One there, you move it down here. Remember, I just folded this piece of paper that was the size of the inside of this. And I come down here, and I just folded it in half. So that should mean that I have that exactly in the center. So I'm going to, oh, of course, this is too big. Of course it is. It's okay. We'll find something with a straight edge. That's 12 inches. That should fit. Nope. That's not going to fit either. Well, here I thought I had it all planned out. It's okay. We have stencils. I can just lay this stencil down. I'm just wanting to mark this line so I can see my center line. Remember, I'm using watercolor pencil, so it's going to disappear anytime it gets hit with water. But I'm doing this so that I have a little better spacing all the way around. See? Water, it's gone. All right. So the stencils I'm going to be using for this are the decorative tiles. I just dropped all those pencils. And there are 6 of them in here, which one of mine has gone rogue. I don't know where it went. But we have this one, which is the one I'm going to be using. We also have that one. And this one. Really fun tile designs. And then this guy and this guy. And then there's one that's a little more circly, and I don't know if I left it upstairs or not, but this is the one I want to use today. This is just painted with a deep brown color. It's called Bittersweet Chocolate. And rather than pull these all the way to the edge, I'm going to line these up on the center line. Okay, make sure that's up. And I want this to be kind of subtle. So I'm not going to go anything too over the top. So I'm actually picking up a metallic color, and it's called Champagne Gold. It's a very, very soft gold. I do have to show you that I did play around with this to figure out what I was doing today. So hopefully I figured this out. Let me move these back up here and turn on my... Grab a nice brush. I'll grab a little bigger brush. I think I'm going to grab a 3/4 inch. And I'm going to load this paint. And I mentioned that metallic paints are a little thinner. You can even see that's a little thinner. So you really, really want to make sure you are offloading your paint well. Really offloading it. These stencils are very, very pretty. All right, so I've set this one up here, and I'm going to give this a quick swirl. I'll position you so you can see it a little better. Oops, I don't know what that is, but it was not part of the stencil. I think it was just a little piece of paper that flew into my tray. When you need to pick up a stencil and you definitely don't want to smear that, so let's just take a little piece of tape. I'm just going to lift it up. See how pretty that is? Now I'm going to use the same stencil, and I'm going to line it up against the middle, and I'm going to line it up against the bottom. Over. Okay. I'll reload my brush. I will re-offload my brush. I'm going to do the same thing. Gentle little swirl. And again, I'm going to just use that little piece of tape to lift it up. A little something here. Okay. I'm going to lay this down again. I'm going to line it up to the center. Make sure this was absolutely centered. I just needed to check something real quick, so I'm lining the edge up to the center. Tucking that there. Should be right there. Okay. And load my brush. Got more paint on there. And I'm going to offload it. Oops, I should have taped it. I knew I should have taped it. Okay. Oops. So no, not quite what I wanted to do. Where did I put that little piece of tape? Okay. So I've got that one, and I'm going to move it one more time. Make sure you check the back of your stencil to make sure that you haven't laid it in anything or there's not any bleed coming through. I'll lay this one down right there. Take up a little more paint. I found the piece of tape. It's on my sleeve. And I'm going to offload. And I really should tape this down, but I'm going to try to hang on pretty well. Give it a quick little swirl. Someone's laughing. I'll have to go back and see what was funny. Okay, so I've got this all on here. Going to use that piece of tape to lift it off. Okay. Now before I go on, I'm going to just take a brush and some clean water. Okay. And I'm just going to remove most of this line. I'm going to leave a little bit in the center. Yep. Just water because it was water. They're watercolor pencils. Okay. So now, again, I'm going to check the back of my stencil. And I'm going to find the middle of my stencil. I think that should be about right. I'm just checking it twice. I'm going to tape it down here. I'm going to tape it up here. I'm really going to remove as much of the paint off of that brush as I possibly can. That way I can use the brush again. And then just in that center, I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to use that center part. And I'm going to use a darker color. This is called Rich Espresso. So I'm going to grab that darker color with the same brush, wipe it off. You see it is darker than that lighter color was, and I'm just going to do the center. Go ahead and use the edge here. Now the one thing I don't like about painting something a solid color like this brown is sometimes you see every little nick. And it won't matter in the center here because we have enough going on. Isn't that pretty? But around these edges where it's just, you can kind of tell it doesn't paint completely evenly, I thought what I might do is grab just a household sponge. I had one. It's just not even a good one. And I'm going to put a little bit of that darker metallic color, and I'm going to grab a little bit of the color that I actually used, which was the bittersweet, and I'm going to put it down here. And I decided it looked a little better if it had a little bit of an edge. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of the brown and a little bit of the metallic, and I'm just simply going to sponge the outer edge. Of the tray. So that way you couldn't tell if it had a little nick in it or not, because it's got a couple different colors. Let's do this side as well. So I've got the brown. So there's the brown. And I'll pick up a little bit of the metallic and I'll just tap it on. So not stenciling, but really pretty easy. This, like I said, is just a household sponge. You could use a sea sponge if you wanted to, but I wanted to just keep it simple. Okay. And we're doing one more edge. this way. So we've got just a little more of a finished edge. When it dries, it'll dry a little. And there's any spots that I put too much of one or the other, I can just go back and sponge back over it. Then, one more thing, I'm going to turn this, set it down on just the very edges here. I'm just barely going to touch, so you can see this. Just barely going to touch. You see? And because I'm just sponging that on, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, but now my hands are full of that, so I'm going to get rid of that. And that's what we have for this pretty, pretty tray. Isn't that pretty? So serving trays, I think, are just great. I think that one would be very classy, just sitting on your coffee table. And we've got the background of the lighter gold and then the little darker, richer color gold in the middle. Now you can do that same thing. This is a stained box. Again, I'll add the UPC to it on in the comments when I'm done. But I'm gonna grab that same stencil. I think I am. I haven't gone anywhere. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna make sure there's nothing on the back. And I'm not gonna do the whole thing. I'm just gonna do the centers. So it'll be something that'll coordinate. So first I'm gonna measure this, and I think this is 12 inches. It is. So let's find our center, which would be 6 inches. 6 inches. So I'm just gonna make a little mark. 6 inches, okay? And I'm gonna find the center of my stencil. Done like such. Let's tape off a little bit. So I know I don't need to go any beyond here, so I can just tape that off. And I'm going to tape on this side as well. Okay. I could tape the other ones as well too. Now this is a little lighter color than that box is. I don't know if the dark brown the dark metallic will show up or not. Let's give it a try. So I've grabbed the dark metallic. I'm offloading. I'm really questioning if that's going to show up though. I don't know. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a test. I'm going to grab a sponge. I'm going to grab a sponge, and first I'm going to grab the light gold. Okay, there's the light gold. I'm going to take it off, and I'm just going to tap a little bit. I'm going to lift it up, and cannot see that at all. Not at all. Okay, so I'm going to find a clean part of the sponge, and I'm going to grab the darker metallic I had. Okay, and I'm going to offload that, and I'm just going to try over here and see if I can see it. Lift it up. Oh, you can. It's very faint, but you can see it. Okay. I think with what I want to do, it'll work out pretty well. So this is the darker metallic. This is the rich espresso. And I've just done that center. Okay. And I'm going to lift it off. You see that? Okay. And then I think I'm just gonna eyeball. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Take the point. It's about 4.5 inches. So half of that would be 2 3/4. No, it's 4.5. Yeah, 2 1/4. 2 1/4. So we've got 1. I'm having to take my glasses off so I can actually see the numbers. So there's my center. So I'm going to do that over here too. So I know about 2.5. So there's 1, 2, 2.25. All right. Did that. Oh, yeah. I'm going to find the center of my stencil again. Yeah. Same spot. Pick up a little more of that brown and offload a little more of that brown. And we're just going to do the center again. See it there? And I'm going to check at the back. And I'm going to find the center of my stencil again. And I'm going to do it on this one as well. And then you've got the metallic medallions on this side of the box. And you can certainly do it on all sides. I'll have to lift you. Oh, no. Can we just eyeball this one? Oh, look how nice. That fits right in the middle. That fits right in the middle, but let's use the right side of the stencil. Eyeballing it. Needs to go down a touch. Pick up a little more of the paint. Just a very simple box. Maybe you need a box for your remotes or something. So there's that on that end. I'll do it on this end as well. It's hard to see in some of the angles, but it really is pretty. And then if you wanted to, of course, you could go on the opposite side as well. Let's see where we at. I guess we've got a couple minutes. I could just go ahead and flip it over. And we can find our middle, which is 6 inches. You can use just parts of them. And the one that I said I was missing, I really wanted to show you something with that one, but it wasn't meant to be. So I've got this. I'm just going to line that stencil up again. And again, really check. And if you need to stop and even clean that stencil a little bit, just to be sure, even if you're just taking a wipe and just making sure you don't have anything on the back side. Look, I did have quite a bit on the back side. So it was a good idea to take it a little time. Just make sure don't have anything that's bled over. And even clean this off a little bit too. Make sure I've got nice clean lines. Okay. And then I'll make sure it's nice and dry. I will line it up, finding the center of my stencil. There we go. Looks pretty good. You need a tiny bit more of that dark, rich espresso color. There we go, off and loading it. Well, I do hope for any of you like me who are supposed to get snow tomorrow that it is not too disruptive. You got this one. There's that one in there. Make sure I don't have anything on the back. I'm going to, nope, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to go our 2 1/4 inches. There's our 2 1/4 inches. We'll make a little mark. And we'll go over here and we'll mark 2 1/4 inches. 1, 2 1/4. There we go. And I can lay this back down. I can line it up with the center of my stencil. Hit this one. One more and we'll have the project finished. Oh my goodness. I usually have something I have to go back and finish afterwards. Oops, sorry guys. Sorry. There you go. So I've got that one. And then we've lined this side up. Remember, we've got our little mark. Checking the back. Center of our stencil. Looks good. And see if we can get it done with this brush. I might need a little more paint. Maybe not. Oh. It's very rich looking. Very rich looking. Okay. We're going to have winners for us in just a second. Now that I can, no, I had to take the glasses off to see the numbers. Not to put the glasses on to read the numbers. Okay, so we did this box with just the metallic. Isn't that pretty? It's very subtle. I kind of like it. And we did that so it can coordinate with the tray. And that we used the same stencil on the corners and then just a little darker in the center. And then we used the metallic and we just went around the edge of the box. So it was kind of fun too. We talked about the flower of the year, which is a peony. And we did 2 different versions of grace, which is a great word anyhow. And there we did it on a darker color with the grace in the lighter color on top of the flowers. And then I did grace. And we just put the flower floating around it. Oh, thank you for the hearts. I really appreciate that. And again, just a very simple way to use our transfers. And then we used the little butterfly transfer inside this little shadow box and used the Faith mini tag set. And that one says Faith, Amen, and Pray. So I think Faith was a really good option for that. So very simple projects, not a lot of there was there was nothing special. We base coated a tray brown, and we did a little sponging to make it a little more fun. Okay, let me see if I can find our winners. Hey, we encourage you to come over and watch, follow, and share Cheers to Creativity and see what we've got going on there. And then also when you're ordering your stencils, please use Cheers, and that will save you 10%. Let me see if I can find our winners. I hear the dogs barking. Okay, just a second. Oh, Stencil of the Month Club is awesome. Thank you for mentioning that, Karen. That's such a great community, great support, and you will love all the inspiration you get to see there as well. That club will be opening very soon, the 14th. And here we go. Here we go. We have winners. We have at Janice Green, Patricia Hutchinson, and Jody Weidman. That is who we have. Janice Green, Patricia Hutchinson, and Jody Weidman. Please email, don't text. Email support@essentialstencil.com and tell them that you are a winner on tonight's live. If you just sent them a text, they're not going to see it and you're not going to get your gift card. So go ahead and email support@essentialstencil.com and say you were a winner on the Thursday Night Live. Guys, it is always my privilege and my fun time to spend some time with you. And I hope that you enjoyed these simple little projects. And just remember, grace always. And until I see you again, please be kind. Cheers.